Beck and welcome to my quick little list of spring book recommendations. It's still a little bit cold in Australia for spring, but we're getting into it anyway. We are 2 weeks into spring, so I thought I'd bring you about 6 book recommendations. The first 2 are fairly cozy fantasy and then the rest are contemporary romance. And I'm going to kick it off by talking about one of my favourite books, one of my newfound favourites of 2022, and that is The Tea Dragon Society, just because it is the most wonderfully wholesome thing, and it's about a young girl who is trying to learn the traditions of her blacksmith family, and this one is the fantasy, like one of the cozy fantasy. So she is part goblin, she's trying to learn blacksmithing from her family, the traditions aren't really sticking, and then one day on a trip into market she comes across a tea dragon, and it's been cornered by some hungry animals, and when she rescues it, it takes it to its master or its companion, and he starts teaching her about tea dragons and how to raise them and nurture them. So this really talks about culture and connectiveness and respect and trying to do things even though they might not necessarily be easy for you or be something that you want to take on. It's about respecting tradition and also respecting yourself. And I love that about it. I really like the atmosphere of this book as well as the characters and the themes. So if you're looking for something short, something easy to get through, wholesome and kind of springy, it will get you quickly through your TBR pile, I think The Tea Dragon Society would be perfect. And then next I want to talk about the Monk and Robot duology. I believe it's a duology. There are 2 books currently out, 2 novellas I mean, and this follows a tea monk. So again with the theme of tea, it follows a tea monk and they are not really sure of their path in life. They're starting to reevaluate things and rediscover their passions and why they're doing things, like the purpose of their life. And it really touches on, again, themes of connectiveness, of perseverance and identity and productivity, and not having to be accountable or productive because you are driven to do so by external factors. It's about what makes you happy, and I really like that message of this story. So it's about the traveling tea monk, but it's also about robots, and robots up and left this generation about 100 years ago, and they left because they didn't want to be effectively enslaved anymore. And so when this tea monk is out off the beaten track, they run into a robot. And so it's really about that cultural, not shock, but that understanding and bridging that gap, and these 2 different creatures starting to form a companionship and an understanding of each other. So it's something that is just about new connections, which is very much what spring is about, and also about growth, and that's why I loved it so much. I like the second novella a lot more than the first one, but I still really enjoyed both. And then we've got a book that I enjoyed not as much as Casey McQuiston's other work, but I really enjoyed this one regardless, and that is I Kissed Shara Wheeler. And this is about a girl who gets kissed by Shara Wheeler, and then Shara Wheeler disappears, and she goes on this treasure hunt that Shara has left behind her, trying to track Shara down. And she's looking for Shara alongside these other 2 boys who were also kissed by Shara, and you don't know why Shara has disappeared, why she's kind of reverse engineered all these characters to, I guess, work together. It's kind of a fast, romantic, rom-com-y mystery, I suppose, if you can lump all of those together. But when I think about spring, I think about fast-paced, I think about growth, and I think about new beginnings, and that's what this really captures. It captures a lot of new and tentative beginnings and growth and interactions with characters. So that's why I liked the book. There were some things that I found not so good. It just didn't capture me as much as Casey McQuiston's Red, White and Royal Blue, but that's one of my personal favourites. So it's hard to live up to a favourite, but I really enjoyed Shara as well, which is why I'm recommending it. It's also a young adult book, not an adult like their other work has been. So it's their first young adult book, but it was quite enjoyable. And then I should also put in another Casey McQuiston work, but this one is an adult book, and that is One Last Stop. And One Last Stop follows a girl who moves, I think, to New York. So again, new beginnings. You're sensing a theme here with my spring recommendations. She is starting in a new city. She's just got these new roommates, and she runs into this girl named Jane as she's catching the train, and she doesn't see Jane outside of this train. So the pitch for this story is really, it encaptures time travel, because this girl named Jane is stuck in a time loop on this particular train line, and then you also get the main character struggling with her career and with her friendships and her identity separated from her family and her mother. And so there's lovely found family in here, which is quite wholesome to read about, and I really loved the side characters in here because they felt really fleshed out. And I really liked the localities of this too, because the environments felt really realistic to me. So I liked the relationships, I liked that it was a female-female romance, I liked that there was found family. It just ticked a lot of boxes, and I really enjoyed this one as well. And then we only have 2 left, so the next one is another favourite of 2022 for me, and that is Get a Life Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. And this follows Chloe Brown, who has a near-death experience in a cafe when a car runs through a shop front next door, and she's like, well, what if that was me and I died? So she starts to make this list, kind of like a bucket list of what she has to achieve. It's very arbitrary, so she has to do these things so that she feels like she's fulfilling her life rather than just sitting back and letting things happen. So she's trying to be more active in her own life. She also has a chronic illness, which was really brilliant to see a protagonist in a rom-com have, and I found this very dramatic, but in a relatable and enjoyable way that was quite charming. So it wasn't annoying, it was believable, and it was supposed to be kind of like a play. And I view rom-coms as like a play or a parody on real life, so there is always that part of suspension of disbelief that you do, but it's still really enjoyable regardless. And I like that in the Chloe Brown book, as well as Talia Hibbert's continuations with the other Brown sisters in this trilogy, she tends to put in the dual perspective, so you get to hear from Chloe and then you get to hear from Red, who's the love interest. And it's like a grumpy sunshine relationship almost, where Chloe is the more outgoing one and Red seems to be more grumpy, or maybe it's the other way around. I can't remember exactly because I read this a few months ago now, but I really enjoyed this, and it's definitely going to be one of my new rereads, so I would highly recommend it because it just came out of left field and really surprised me. I wasn't expecting to love it so much, but it has made my reread list, which is high praise. And then the last one on this list is by an author that I really like, Sophie Gonzalez. It is perfect on paper, and if you think of the show Sex Education, it's very similar in the premise. So you have a character who is putting on a front and pretending she is not the owner of this random locker, and everybody puts their relationship questions into this locker, and her mum is, I think, a teacher at the school, so she gets after school access. So when she's at school afterwards, when everybody has left, she accesses this locker, takes all of the questions in it, and then answers it anonymously on an anonymous email that she has. So she has become very renowned at this school, but anonymously, and so she gets secrets from her friends that are submitted to the anon box, and there is a lot of internal conflict for her, as well as after school one day this guy notices her getting something out of the locker and ends up kind of blackmailing her into an agreement. And so it's about the kind of enemies to lovers relationship in this book, and secrets and identity as well. So I put this on the list because, I don't know, it just felt like a book that you could read in spring rather than one that is a new beginning, I suppose. It's a lot of growth happens in this book, so maybe that's what my thought process was. But nonetheless, that brings me to the end of this short little spring recommendations video. Let me know if you have any other books. I'm always after more rom-com books because they're not the primary genre that I reach for, but I obviously really enjoy rom-com, so please let me know your recommendations down below. I would love to hear from you, but thank you again so much for watching this video. I'll come chat to you down below in the comments, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.